it's time to stand and be the officiating person or the person in charge in your group. So I do have a bulletin. It's laid out well. I will attempt to follow that. But if I do make a mistake, I ask for forgiveness ahead of time. As far as the announcements, I have a little update on Dan and Arlene. Arlene had called yesterday and said that she'd taken a little spill and that she had fallen and her back was not up to speed, so she probably wouldn't be here today. And so we ask an interest in your prayers for her that she can get up and going. And is there anyone else?
We have a card going around for Arlene.
Okay. I think it was on the piano last time I saw it. If for anybody that wants to sign that card, blue envelope. See, also next week, December 1st, is prayer and testimony and then the sacrament service. We should all be prepared for that as well. If there are no other announcements, our call to worship today comes from Ephesians. Chapter 5, verses 19 to 21. Speaking to yourselves in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody in your heart to the Lord, giving thanks and always for all things unto God and the Father in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of God. May the Lord add His blessing to the reading of His word, and may we stand and sing hymn number 79. 79.
With thankful hearts we meet, O Lord, to sing thy praise, to hear thy word, to seek thy face in earnest prayer, to cast on thee each earthly care. Dear shepherd of thy chosen flock, thy people shield their shadowy rock. Once more we need to hear thy voice, once more before thee to rejoice. Thy presence, Savior, now we seek. Comfort the strong, sustain the weak. Wayward and tired, we hither come. Give us a foretaste of our hope.
You bow with me. Heavenly Father, as with humble hearts we come before Thee at this time. We're so thankful to live in a place where we have freedom to worship. We're thankful to have a place which to gather with one another. We're thankful, Lord, for the many blessings Thou hast bestowed upon us. We know that many times we take those blessings for granted and many times we forget. We thank Thee, Lord, for the many times Thou hast watched over us. We ask that You would be with our brother this day, that he would bring the spoken word that You had placed upon his heart. We pray that He would receive that spoken word joyfully and would remember those important things also and help us draw closer to Thee. These things we pray in Christ's name. Amen. Let us continue our service singing of hymn number 307.
Take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to Thee. Take my moments and my days, let them flow in ceaseless praise. Take my hands and will of my Lord I pour, at thy feet its treasure store. Take myself and I will be ever only all for thee.
Our scripture for the offertory comes from Psalms 24, verses 1 through 4. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. And he hath founded it upon the seas, and established it upon the floods. Who shall ascend into the hill of the Lord? And who shall stand in his holy place? He that hath clean hands and a pure heart, who hath not lifted up his soul unto vanity, nor hath sworn deceitfully. As I was thinking about that, I was reminded of a story of a man one time. He decided to start a business. He was going to have a hardware store, and he had a rather good location. And he, sort of like sometimes we do, he made a deal with the Lord. He said, if you will bless me and help me, I will pay my tithing and the 10% that I owe for the increase. And so as he worked and he labored diligently and he worked, after the first month, he had netted $50. He thought, well, that's probably not going to sustain me, but he remembered what he had told the Lord, and he paid his 10% of $5. Well, things kind of picked up, and that next month, he had $50. And wow, this is more what he had expected. So he paid his tithe on that particular portion. About 6 to 8 months later, the things had caught on. His location was paying off, and then 6 months later than that, he had $500 a month. Well, that was $50. That was kind of tough for him during that time and period, he thought. So he decided that he was struggling with it so much, he decided he wanted to speak to the minister and pastor of the church, and he basically said, you know, my store is doing so well. He said that my increase, my tithing is the same as my entire net gain those first few months. He said, I'm having trouble in my heart releasing of that money. He said, I don't know what to do. And the pastor looked at him and said, well, that's rather simple. We simply pray that the Lord would reduce your net income to the $50 again. Sometimes a light can shine on us, and sometimes we forget the great blessings that we receive. Come over for the offering.
Dear Lord, gracious and heavenly Father, we come before Thee on this beautiful day, week of Thanksgiving, to give thanks for everything that You do for us, dear Lord. We love You, and we want to follow Your word, so please accept these funds. Please bless these funds and direct us to use them that would be Thy will. We ask for these things in Jesus Christ's holy name. Amen.
Let's continue our service with hymn number 264, and Brother Paul will bring the spoken word.
He leadeth me, O blessed thought, O words with heavenly comfort fraught. Whate'er I do, whate'er I be, still 'tis God's hand that leads. This is my God that leadeth me. He leadeth me by his own hand. He leadeth me. His faithful power I would be, for by his hand he leadeth me. Morning.
Good morning.
Well, this morning, I took a little precaution that I should have done last week. I counted my pages, so I didn't miss one. Those were here in my head. You might have noticed I did a little bit of fumbling because I got up here like I do right now, and I took them out, and I set my papers here, and I'm looking for them, and there's page 2, and there's page 3. No page 1. So now I'm thinking, okay, now how did I start this thing? So that was an interesting experience. They tell you that when you've done this for a few years, don't worry about it, experience will take over and you'll be all right. That's not 100% true. I still find myself getting nervous quite often when it's my opportunity and privilege to stand up here. I was told by a good brother some time ago, well, when you ever start feeling 100% comfortable, probably something wrong. Anyway, let's share some messages this morning I think is pertinent to Thanksgiving, to the Thanksgiving holiday. And I'd like to begin first, though, with the scripture to kind of center our thoughts a little bit. This comes from the 77th section of the Doctrine and Covenants, 4a through e. Verily, verily, I say unto you, ye are little children, and ye have not as yet understood how great blessings the Father has in his own hands, and prepared for you, and ye cannot bear all things now. Nevertheless, be of good cheer, for I will lead you along. The kingdom is yours, and the blessings thereof are yours, and the riches of eternity are yours. And he who receiveth all things with thankfulness shall be made glorious, and the things of this earth shall be added unto him, even an hundredfold, yea, more. Wherefore, do the things which I have commanded you, saith your Redeemer, even the Son of Ammon, who prepared all things before he taketh you. For ye are the church of the firstborn, and he will take you up in the cloud, and appoint every man his portion. And he that is faithful and wise, steward, shall inherit all things. Amen. Quite a promise the Lord has made to us, simply asking us to be faithful. All of our lives, we must deal out in the world. We must seek the best things we can, do the best we can with what we have with our resources, and seek to get the best deals we can wherever we go. It seems like in our business life and all the daily shopping and going about and as we need to do, it seems like everybody kind of likes to look for a bargain in life. They like when they're shopping, for instance, to see things like sale where there's 25% off, or maybe 2-for-1 offers are very popular. They're all over the stores. But what's even better than either of these two is when you can find something that's offered for free. Something offered free. Oh boy, people really like that word free. They like the idea of no cost, no obligation. Well, the problem is that in this whole excitement of getting such bargain, sometimes we become a little cynical. We wonder how many thoughts like these in times when we're searching for things and we find something good, how many times do we thank God for that we found and what a bargain it might be? Probably not often this is done because there seems to be so many times questions like, are these seemingly great offers all that they're showing themselves to be? Or is it just that maybe a merchant is really offering such great deals to either the potential or regular customers he has, or maybe it could be the owner is simply trying to attract new or steady business, or maybe there's some other kind of hidden agenda that he has. They might just be trying to unload outdated merchandise, is it really something you want to be thankful for? Maybe we better wait before we go about thanking anybody. Experience I had, a few experiences actually. One I purchased sometime a while ago, a GPS from a mail order house. It was one I considered to be a pretty reputable business. And maybe I should look at the small print that was at the bottom of the ad a little bit better. Because it said something like, in very small print, factory renewed to original quality, may have slight cosmetic blemishes. That didn't scare me too much. I'm not worried about how it looked as long as it worked. Well, I received it, found it had no blemishes at all. Well, I made a good deal. Problem was, when I tried to turn it on, sometimes it would, sometimes it won't, and mostly it won't. Then there was a time that I went to the store, come do it in person, check it over first, and I bought a VCR. Remember what those things are, the tapes you should put in a big old ugly thing. Anyway, I took that home, put the tape in, pressed the button, get ready to play it, and the tape ejected. Well, over and over I did the same thing. And like they say, you do the same thing over, you're going to get the same results over. Now, in defense of the machine, I got to say this, that it did rewind tapes. But I just thought that $200 was a little much to pay for a tape rewinder, so that wasn't a good deal. Actually though, most of the time when you go shopping, most of the time you're going to get pretty much what you paid for. And when you do, it's the time to give thanks. When I buy something, I take it home, works as well as I had hoped, well, I do thank God that it does. No matter if it's an appliance or a computer program or whatever it might be, when it does what it's supposed to, or when it does maybe even a little bit more than it was designed to do, or what I thought it would do, I really thank God. When I was attending church in Miami, met a brother there, you might remember his name. His name is Maury Mills. Some of you might remember him, or maybe you read his book. He wrote a book some time ago called In Times Like These. Unfortunately for us, that brother hasn't been called home. But for many years, Maury had made it a practice to call upon God for any decisions that he was going to make. For no matter if that decision involved a significant purchase, or just some kind of decision where he might go. All these things he would always pray to God for. He made a point of he prayed to God about everything. Like an SUV he bought one time, and he had it for many, many years. Now he did receive a bit of kidding, even from some of the saints because of his action. This guy prays to God for everything, and he did. But I don't know of any case where when I was talking to Maury, he ever said that he would have made any decision he made in any of his purchases or any of his deals, that he would have done anything differently. Now, was God active in every choice that Maury made and every purchase he made? I don't know. Nobody can say that God meant with 100% active in all the things. After all, God does affect us, and He's even told us that there are a lot of things that we can do on our own. So whether guided by God or using His own intelligence, He has given us, I think, a lot of good reasons to thank God, and Maury did that. He thanked God for everything. And for those times when perhaps we'll ask for guidance and such as that, and still things don't go as well as we had planned, it may seem strange, but actually that's another opportunity really to thank God. Not that things didn't work out necessarily, but thank Him for the experience, so that maybe next time you'll make a better decision. I know I've had that happen quite a few times, more than I'd like to recall. There's a scripture that I think would do good for all of us to remember. Not just at Thanksgiving time, or Christmas or Easter or any other special holidays, but all the time. And it comes from the words the great Apostle Paul wrote in the book of Romans in the 8th chapter, 28th verse. And Paul simply said, "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to His purpose." And having said that, I I got, at the same time, confess it, I've gotten angry a few times, but it just didn't occur to me to thank God for the experience. But then again, there have been situations or circumstances that have arisen when I don't know if I consciously was remembering, but it seemed that there was a time when I would remember to thank God. And I can tell you that when that occurs in your life, when something happens unfortunate, and you do take the time to thank God about it, it does give you kind of peace of mind and a calmness of spirit, which is so important. I can remember very clearly one such time. It was a time that I almost lost my left thumb in a fight I had with a table saw. I didn't get too excited. I jumped back naturally. I didn't cuss. And not even one time when the needle was stuck in my hand by the surgeon, and that needle was about 4 inches long. I know it had to be 4 inches long, but I saw that line. And although, as he said, I could cuss him, I didn't get mad at all. I just accepted it. And I think the good that came from the experience was kind of a manifold blessing. First, of course, I thank God I didn't lose the thumb, which was very important to me. And something else happened that was important. I found that I would have a lot more respect for the potential destructive power of a machine that you don't respect. And as a third thing, I figured I would watch more closely what I was doing the next time I had to use that saw, which I did the very next day, because I was right back on the job. And I found I didn't have any problems using that power saw and getting, well, Rick knows what I'm talking about. Sometimes I gotta get a little close to that blade. But it didn't make me nervous. I just knew that this time be a little more careful. Had I gotten angry, had I gotten, let's say, even angry at the machine, the lighting, the wood, or blaming it on anything else, there's a chance I might have developed some kind of a fear of using that machine. And that's one of the worst things that can happen to any kind of a woodworker, or which I was at the time, or anybody else for that matter that uses machinery or power tools. Learning to see and appreciate the hand of God in our lives can do so much to enrich us, as well as help us to be eased over the many bumps and straighten out the curves of life's experience that it throws at us. The more clearly we can see the hand of God at work, the better lives we're going to be. I think it is very, very fortunate for those who develop that kind of wisdom at a very young age. But at any age, I would venture to say that it comes from following this simple admonition given to us: be still and know that I am God. When one rushes through life in a blind rush to get ahead, as so many do, there's a tendency that we miss a lot. Simple truths, simple facts are missing. Cautions are missing. Warnings are often missing. Credits, maybe the meaning of the various events in our life, tend to be ignored. Things like who does or doesn't do what, or who is responsible or not even involved in certain events, and then to place the credit or the blame in the wrong place. Those things don't happen unless we are just rushing along. If we are calm and take things as we should, we are more organized. In the confusion, we often sometimes seek to correct things which don't need correction, and that's another mistake we can make. So much can be scrambled up in a true rush to life. It's not unusual in the case of a big problem or a great tragedy to have one's mind, at least temporarily, fixed on that disaster, and maybe even for a while not see the hand of God at work. And it's even harder to remember that spiritual admonition to be still and know I am God when you're facing a disaster. But sometimes the failure to see the hand of God in all things, or to thank Him for His involvement, is also the forgotten experience of the environment perhaps we were born and grew up, although it's not always true. It's something that we can have a great impact on our life as we grow up. A person's attitude as they grow and as they develop will most often be determining the kind of man or woman that they will turn out to be. People, for instance, whose family life, especially in those earliest years, or maybe you were kind of like a dog-eat-dog existence, like somebody who lacked the material things as a child, might often turn out to be a self-centered individual, one of those all for me type people. Now that I finally got out of poverty, I want to keep everything I got. But considering nothing more than what it takes and how they can get ahead, they don't become a very giving person. Whereas those who develop a more caring and sharing attitude have a tendency to examine all things in life, including maybe the purpose of life and why I'm here, what God expects of me, and perhaps see their particular purpose in life, and then to seek and find an understanding and have that closer relationship with God. Of course, it also helps if one is raised with the knowledge and understanding of the commandments and the involvement God has had with us all along. As I go through the scriptures, I was thinking on these things and reading the story again about Joseph. Joseph, who was the son of Jacob, because he was that kind of man. The Bible seems to indicate that Joseph's life as a shepherd, who was actually the son of a shepherd also, his young life was a reasonably contented one. Without any knowledge of the events that would soon unfold in his life, because he didn't have that gift of prophecy that early in life. I'm sure you remember the story about Joseph, the story about the coat of many colors. It's been told so many times. How after shredding the coat, his brothers took it to his father Jacob, his father now named Israel, and said Joseph had been killed and even devoured by a wild beast. You remember that? When they had actually sold him to those Ishmaelites who had in turn sold him to the Egyptians as a slave. And then after many years there had passed, and he was slaving away in Egypt, there came a famine across the land, and even into the land of Canaan, where his father and brothers lived. And Israel was forced to send his sons to Egypt to buy some grain to live. You remember that. Anyway, twice his sons had to make that trip, because obviously this food doesn't last all that long. But in either time did they recognize Joseph, who was the one that they had to deal with to get the grain. Now Joseph went from a slave to become the second most important man in Egypt. Well, it would take too long to retell all the points of the story, so you're going to have to read that yourself if you want to refresh all the points and see if I messed up any. Chapter 39 of Genesis starts it. But the part of the story I wanted to emphasize was what happened on the second visit. In the first 8 verses of chapter 45, after Joseph had decided to make himself known to his brothers, this is what the scripture says. It says, "And I, Joseph, could not refrain myself before them that stood by me. And he cried, because he caused every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard. And Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph. Does my father yet live? And his brother could not answer them, for they were troubled at his presence." They expected a little revenge from Joseph. And Joseph said to his brethren, "Come near to me, I pray you." And they came near. And he said, "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. Now therefore, be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves that ye sold me hither, for God did send me to preserve your life. And for these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years in the which shall neither be earing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve you posterity on the earth, and save your lives by deliverance. So it was not you that sent me hither, but God. And he hath made me a father of Pharaoh, and lord of all his house, and ruler over the land of Egypt. Now, to be sure, Joseph was not what you say an ordinary man in the sense. He was a very spiritual man. He developed and grew into a very spiritual man. A man close to God, a man who saw God's hand in his fire. How easy it might have been at that time for his brothers to be unrepentant and simply say things like, well, aren't you glad we did what you did for you? Because now look at your second in command in Egypt. But they didn't do that. Apparently they had become repentant. Apparently they had felt sorrow for what they had done, and they expected to be punished, but Joseph didn't punish them. In order to make things, the thing which they did to Joseph seem